the world of anime, most anime are only lucky enough to have one legendary group. In Bleach, you have the Gote 13. In Akame ga Kill, you have Night Raid. And in Attack on Titan, you have the Scout Corps. But in a few very select anime, you get more than one, if not many more than one legendary groups. One Piece has the 4 Emperors and the 7 Warlords. Black Clover has the Black Bulls and Golden Dawn. And Naruto has, well, a lot. See, Naruto, if anything, is a story about groups. Whether those groups be teams, organizations, divisions, entire armies, unions, there's a lot of them. But the real beauty of Naruto is that these groups do come in these myriad of sizes. In Naruto, there is over 25 teams, 4-man groups. And these teams usually subsist of a Jonin and 3 Genin, or at least that's how they start. But Naruto also has legendary divisions, like the Cypher Division, or the Counterintelligence Division, or the 1st through 4th Divisions. And if you want to go even further beyond that, they have the Allied Shinobi Forces, and now the Shinobi Union that exists in Boruto. But when we're talking about it, the true most legendary combinations of people in Naruto aren't the teams or the unions or the divisions. No, the true most legendary groupings of people in Naruto are the groups. Groups of people too big to be considered a team, but too small to be considered a division. People like the Konoha 13, the 12 Guardian Ninja, the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist, the Akatsuki, Kara. These are the true groups that make Naruto the legendary anime and manga that it is to this day. And without these legendary groups, Naruto would not be nearly as infamous as it is today. But out of all of these incredibly prominent, potent groups, who is the strongest? What legendary group introduced throughout Naruto and Boruto's timeline would come out on top if it came down to an all-out battle royale between them? And maybe more importantly than that, who are all these legendary groups? What are their backstories? How did they come together? Who was in them? Well, today we hope to answer all those questions and more, because today we're talking all the groups in Naruto, ranked and explained. But before we get to ranking or explaining anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, hit that noti bell. And if you like the idea of me ranking and explaining groups, then boy, oh boy, are you gonna love my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk any other anime. And if you like the idea of me just talking about anime in general, you're gonna love my anime podcast, Who Talk is Anonymous, that I do every week with Danny Mata. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, groups in Naruto, it's kind of an ambiguous term, especially when you consider the fact that there's well over 100 teams in Naruto. So when we throw the word group around, what do we mean by that? Well, what we're going to be talking about today are groups of people larger than 4 people. Because obviously, if we talked about groups of people that were 4 people or less, that would include every single team that's ever formed in Naruto's history, with things like the AB combo, Team 7, Team 10, Team Guy, you get it. And while one day we absolutely will do a video ranking and explaining every single team in Naruto, today is not that day. Outside of that, on the higher end, we're also not going to be talking about anything that could be categorized as a division. The best and clearest example of this would be the 1st through 4th division of the Shinobi Allied Forces, but another thing that I would also consider a division are things like the Anbu and the Root. Groups of 100 or so people who act more as a military force than, you know, a loose grouping of ninja. But we can also make a video ranking and explaining all of the divisions in Naruto. Don't know how we're going to clickbait that one, but we'll figure it out. So what does that leave us with? Well, the incredibly specific number of a group between 5 and 20-ish people. Well, actually 5 and 13, because the biggest group on this list is 13 people, which might seem oddly specific, but even after chopping the parameters down by that much, we still have 8 groups on this list. On top of this, we're only gonna be talking about relevant and or canon groups. So groups like the 8-man squad that Kakashi and Yamato led in order to find Sasuke, but then thought Sasuke died because they saw Deidara's self-explosion, I'm not gonna add because they never do anything. Same thing with the lightning group who appeared in Sasuke's Shinden Book of Sunrise. They were a group of vigilantes that all had Kekkei Genkai that we were introduced to in Sasuke's first light novel. Actually, that might have been his second one, I don't know. They're not relevant to the story. They're side characters in a light novel. Though obviously Book of Sunrise did get adapted at the end of Shippuden, so they did technically have an anime appearance. And that's all the rules, which is more than we usually have in a YouTube video, but we really had to trim the fat on this one. If I included all of the groups larger than 4 people, this list would have been like 25 groups long. But instead, it's 8, which brings us perfectly to our first entry, because coming in at number 8, we have the Sound Village 4. Listen, I know what you're saying, Mick.
You just said they had to be bigger than 4 people. You're already breaking a rule.
Which I would usually say, this is my video, go cry somewhere else. But the Sound Village 4 are not the Sound Village 4. Sure, that's what they call themselves. Sure, they're usually 4 people, but we all know the Sound Village 4 is truly the Sound Village 5. And actually calling them the Sound Village 5 isn't even technically inaccurate. See, the Sound Village 4, when we're introduced to them, are led by Sakon and Ukon. However, prior to Sakon and Ukon taking over as the leader, Kimimaru was the leader of the Sound Village 4. Now, obviously, this was before whatever debilitating disease, debilitated him, but when Kimimaru was perfectly healthy and being prepared to be Orochimaru's perfect sacrifice, the next vessel that Orochimaru believed he would be able to live in for longer than 3 years, Kimimaru was the leader of the Sound Village 4. But even if you don't want to consider Kimimaru part of the Sound Village 4, Sakon and Ukon are technically 2 people. They just share a body, but they're capable of splitting from each other. So if anything, it might actually be the Sound Village 6. Now, the Sound Village 4 are Orochimaru's elite bodyguards, but they didn't just get this title by being the cutest boy in class. We were shown in the anime, unfortunately not in the manga, so this is kind of a filler moment, that Orochimaru would take dozens, if not hundreds of prisoners that were young shinobi. And then he would have these young shinobi battle against each other in massive battle royales. And the strongest of those shinobi, the ones who won these battle royales, were chosen for curse marks. And those who survived the curse mark transformation would become one of Orochimaru's bodyguards. Now, this is one of those moments where the filler should be taken as canon, as this anime-only moment aligns with basically everything that we see from Orochimaru in the manga. Because we know that after his battle against Hiruzen, Orochimaru had to find a suitable vessel to switch into so he could use his arms even a little bit. And in order to find a suitable vessel that he would be able to stay in until he either got Sasuke or some other perfect vessel, Orochimaru had all of his current prisoners battle against each other until there was only one standing, at which point he took the body of the last ninja standing. Assuming that Orochimaru would do something similar to find his elite bodyguards is not crazy. And once all 4 of the ninjas that comprised the Sound Village 4 as we knew it got their curse marks and became Orochimaru's bodyguards, they were forced to accept Kimimaru as their leader. That is, after Kimimaru used his Shikatsu to defeat all 4 of them with relative ease. And back in the day when Kimimaru was still healthy enough to be in the fields, they were known as the Sound Village 5. It wasn't until in the anime that the Sound Village 5 helped Orochimaru assassinate the Kazekage that Kimimaru fell terminally ill, which is once again one of those filler moments we should consider canon, because in the manga, we never even really got a specified time when Kimimaru fell ill. He was just sick. And honestly, so far as bodyguards go, the Sound Village 4 were pretty good. Outside of helping Orochimaru assassinate the Kazekage and then impersonating the Kazekage's bodyguards, during the Konoha Crush arc, the Sound Village 4 also erected the barrier that kept Orochimaru and Hiruzen cut off from everybody else. You know, the barrier that some of Konoha's true elites in the Anbu just jumped into? But after this battle against Hiruzen, Orochimaru loses his arms, and therefore he needs a perfect vessel, something that he needs Sasuke for, which is where the iteration of the Sound Village 4 that we all love and remember truly comes from, the Sasuke retrieval arc. So let's introduce our members of the Sound Village 4. They are Tayuya, Sakon and Ukon, Kirimaru, and Jirobo. And most importantly, their former and somewhat current leader, Kimimaru, at least as it pertains to the Sasuke retrieval arc. Every single one of the Sound Village 4/5 wielded incredibly unique and powerful techniques, with Kimimaru wielding his Shikatsu, the ability to grow bones from his body that were harder than steel, Tayuya, who had the ability to cast genjutsu with the flute and also control puppets. Sakon and Ukon, who had complete control over their molecular structure, giving them the ability to seep into other people's bodies or simply form 2 heads. Kirimaru, who had many spider-like abilities, ranging from the ability to shoot high-velocity arrows out of his mouth to summoning a massive spider that could give birth to a sack of tiny spiders that would rain down on their enemies. And finally, Jirobo, a hulking taijutsu master who also used his earth release to suck the chakra out of his opponents. That is, any opponents he managed to catch under his earth dome. While each and every single one of the Sound Village 5 was incredibly formidable in battle without their curse marks, hence how they were able to become Orochimaru's elite bodyguards in the first place, with the usage of the curse marks bestowed upon them by Orochimaru, they became even more formidable. By gaining access to Orochimaru's Senjutsu chakra, their jutsu prowess was heightened, their range was increased, their speed and strength was doubled, if not tripled, and their chakra pools became much larger. To overcome the power of these curse marks, Choji had to take the tri-colored pills, Neji almost died, Rock Lee required Gaara's help, and so on and so forth, making the Sound Village 5 one of the most intimidating and powerful groups in the early days of Naruto. However, the Sound Village 5 lost. Pretty handedly, I would say. And the team they lost to is next up on the list, because coming in at number 7, we have the Sasuke Retrieval Team. Now this was a squad. There's a couple of different ways you could look at the Sasuke recovery team. You can either look at it as 5 boys and Akamaru, who honestly I count. I would say it's a 6-person team. Or you can look at it as that 6-person team plus the 3 Sand siblings. Because here's the thing. Almost every single person in the Sasuke recovery team lost their 1v1. In fact, the only person who won their 1v1 was Choji, and that's because he took a pill that made him 100 times stronger and should have killed him. Kiba was going to lose to Sakon and Ukon, which makes sense. Why did we send Kiba to fight the leader? Shikamaru was gonna lose to Tayuya, and Rock Lee, who's also an honorary member of the Sasuke recovery team, was gonna lose to Kimimaru. If it wasn't for Kankuro coming to help Kiba, or Tamari coming to help Shikamaru, or Gaara coming to help Rock Lee, they were all getting wiped off the map. So without considering Rock Lee and the Sand siblings on this team, it would be hard to put them above the Sound Village 5, which is why I am officially adding the Sand siblings and Rock Lee to the Sasuke recovery team. I mean, they were helping, and if we're being entirely real, this entire group was thrown together in a half hour, so anybody else joining late should be considered part of the group. See, the reason that the Sasuke recovery team was the Sasuke recovery team is because in the wake of the Konoha Crush arc, Konoha didn't want to seem weak, so they increased the workload of all of the Chunin and Jonin in Konoha, which sent most of them outside of the village. Because of this, when Tsunade was made aware of the fact that Sasuke had left the village, she didn't have the appropriate staff to send for what would be an A-rank mission. And therefore, she had to use Shikamaru, who was recently promoted to Chunin, and whatever genin he could find in a half hour, which happened to be Choji, Kiba, Naruto, and Neji. Now, this group was technically supposed to include Shino, but he was away on a mission, which was good for Sasuke because if he had gone, Sasuke would have come back to the village. There would have been no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Shino would have won and continued winning until eventually Sasuke was dragged back. The man has never lost a fight in Naruto. The group was also supposed to include Sakura, but Shikamaru turned her away. Now, the goal of this team is to quite obviously retrieve Sasuke. However, the goal of the Sound Village 5 is to stop them from retrieving Sasuke, which is why this arc played out as multiple individual fights all on top of each other. Because the first person that the Sound Village 5 left behind was Jiroba, who managed to imprison the entirety of the Sasuke rescue team in his Earth Dome. However, after breaking out of the dome, Choji stays behind to fight against Jiroba. And while for a while it appears as though Choji is going to win against Jiroba, after he activates his curse mark, that kind of goes out the window. That is, of course, until Choji begins to eat his tricolored pills, a food supplement passed down through the Akamichi clan that allows those who aren't able to use the butterfly mode to access the butterfly mode. See, these tricolored pills amp the caloric conversion ability of the Akamichi, something that requires years of practice for an Akamichi clansman. However, if you haven't had those years of practice, you can take these tricolored pills to increase your caloric conversion. And once your caloric conversion is at a high enough level, that is, after you take the red colored pill, you are able to use the butterfly mode, the strongest ability of the Akamichi clan, the ability that Choji uses to defeat Jiroba. And the rest of the arc kind of plays out like this. The next person to separate off the group is Neji when he goes to battle against Kidomaru. And this fight also appears as though it's going Neji's way as he uses his 128 palms to destroy thousands of spiders simultaneously in one of the cooler scenes from the OG days of Naruto, until once again Kidomaru activates the second version of his curse mark, at which point Neji has to purposely get hit by an arrow so he can grab the string it's attached to and use his gentle fist on it, killing Kidomaru. The next person to break off from the group is Kiba, who battles against Sakon and Ukon and just gets beat so badly. Truly, the only thing that Kiba ever does correctly in this battle is have Sakon and Ukon come into his body, and then he stabs himself, which also hurts them. However, it's not until Kankuro pulls up and then puts Sakon and Ukon in his Black Maiden and stabs them to death that Kiba is made victorious. The same situation happened for Shikamaru, who was battling against the likes of Tayuya. While Shikamaru in the forest had an inherent advantage in this battle because in the forest there are limited shadows that he can hop his shadow between, Tayuya had a kit that was incredibly advantageous against the likes of Shikamaru. That is to say that she had one of the best ranged kits in all of Naruto's history. See, Tayuya could play a flute, and if you heard this flute song, you would get cast into genjutsu, and not fun genjutsu, like the kind of genjutsu where Shikamaru saw his arm melting. And on top of this, she was also able to control puppets that could keep her enemies far away from her. It wasn't until Tamari, Shikamaru's future love interest, pulled up that the fight got serious. See, Tamari, fortunately, also has an incredibly ranged kit, being one of the most proficient wind style users in all of Naruto, funneling her wind style through her fan. However, even using her 3-moon wind blast wasn't enough in the battle against Tayuya, as Tamari also had to summon her weasel summon, which is a weasel with a sickle and an eye patch, and it's one of my favorite things in all of Naruto. And it wasn't until Temari summoned one of the strongest summoning animals in all of Naruto, as this weasel was able to cut down an entire forest like that finally Tayuya was defeated. Naruto was the last person of the Sasuke retrieval arc pushing on beyond the Sound Village 4. That was until, of course, he was stopped by Kimimaro, who he stood no chance against. Fortunately, however, for him though, Rock Lee had recovered from his surgery with Tsunade, and had stole what he believed to be medicine on the way out the door. However, it was sake because Tsunade might be an alcoholic. Because of this, we were served one of the most legendary moments in anime, Rock Lee's drunken fist. However, when Rock Lee sobered up, he realized he was no match for Kimimaru's almost impregnable defense. And as he was about to be killed, he was saved by the very person who put him under the scalpel in the first place, Gaara, who proceeds to cover the entire battlefield in sand and sand burial it, but even that isn't enough to kill Kimimaru. But you know what is enough to kill Kimimaru? Plot. Because as Kimimaro is about to kill both Gaara and Rock Lee simultaneously, his heart gives out. Plot, baby. Undefeated. In fact, the only person from the Sound Village 5 grouping that doesn't die is Sasuke. And since Sasuke was actually elected the pseudo-leader of the Sound Village 4 in the Sasuke retrieval arc, you could also count him towards the Sound Village 5 or 6 or 7 now if you're counting Sasuke. But since we're talking about plot, Naruto should have won that battle in the final valley the first time. Why, you ask? Well, he could have just summoned Gamabunta, but he never does. Naruto in the first final valley fight was much stronger than Sasuke. But plot. But enough about relevant and cool groups from Naruto's golden days. Let's talk about obscure groups that very few people know about. Because coming in at number 6, we have the Suicide Corps. Or for the man who took time out of his day to open Gmail and angrily email me about saying corpse, the Suicide Corps. Think I give a hoot? It's my page, baby. So the Suicide Corps is a group led by Rock Lee. And we don't know a huge amount about the Corps. We just know there was at least 6 members. And that every single one of these 6 members is trained in the 8 gates. And that every single one of these members is at least able to open up to the 5th gate. See, the reason that we know that every single one of these taijutsu masters from Konoha is able to open up to the 5th gate is because the formation they create is green. And we know that Rock Lee and Might Guy both turn green after activating the 5th gate. Outside of that, all we know about this group is that they were strong enough to be able to kick a meteorite in half. And well, obviously, kicking this meteorite in half wasn't enough because Sasuke had to step in and destroy one of the halves that was still going to hit Konoha with his Chidori. Still, a group being able to kick a meteorite in half is gonna be a bit higher than the Geni. Cause say what you will about Choji on the red pill, I don't know if he's pulling this feat off. But enough about irrelevant groups, let's get back to the true reason that we're watching this video. Because coming in at number 5, we have the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. Now, we've seen a lot of different iterations of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist throughout Naruto's history. And on top of this, the fate of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist is different in the anime as it is in the manga. However, this is one of those moments where we don't take filler as canon because it contradicts the source material. See, the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist can be broken into 2 separate generations. Pre-Might Dai and post-Might Dai. See, the reason that the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist are broken up into pre and post-Might Dai is because Might Dai kills almost all of them. See, Might Dai, for those of you who don't remember, is Might Guy's father, the Eternal Geni, who saved his son from being apprehended by the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist by activating the 8th gate and killing a majority of the 7 Swordsmen. Now, so far as the manga is concerned, Might Dai kills 6 out of the 7 Swordsmen. However, so far as the anime is concerned, Might Dai only kills 4. Because the anime reintroduces Juzo and Raiga into the story after the battle against Might Dai, with Juzo going on to be killed by Yagura and Raiga getting his own arc and kind of killing himself. But also, Naruto kind of kills him. Like, Naruto hits him off a cliff that would kill him, but Raiga incinerates himself mid-air with lightning. See, in the manga, the only person who survived was the wielder of Samehada prior to Kisame, Fuguki, who would go on to be killed by Kisame so Kisame could get Samehada. But the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist are kind of a revolving door. So if we operate under the assumption of the rules of the manga, 6 out of 7 of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist die in a battle against Might Dai, while Might Guy is 12 years old. And somehow the Hidden Mist manages to retain all of the 7 Swords of the Mist. Maybe Fuguki outsurvived Might Dai and collected all of the weapons and brought them back with him. But at the end of the day, this means that Might Dai was able to defeat every 7 Swords of the Mist wielder outside of the wielder of Samehada, which means he defeated the wielder of the Blast Sword, which is essentially a hatchet with infinite explosive seals that whenever you swing, explodes into whatever you swing it onto. He defeated the wielder of the helmet splitter, which was an axe and a mallet used together to break through any defenses. He defeated the user of the sewing needle, which is an incredibly long sword that pierces through enemies and is connected to a seemingly infinite amount of wire. It's commonly used to either lay traps or string up enemies so they can no longer move. He also defeated the wielder of the Kiba blades, who was Raiga. And these blades are said to be the sharpest blades on Earth because they're imbued with the lightning elemental chakra of the user. And we know from basically the entirety of Naruto that imbuing a weapon with lightning chakra makes it sharper. He was also able to defeat Juzo, the wielder of the executioner blade prior to Zabuza. And maybe most impressively, he was also able to defeat the wielder of the split sword, which is the second most powerful sword out of the 7 swords of the mist. Now, obviously, after this generation of 7 swordsmen of the mist that were murdered by Might Dai, a couple of key players stepped in. Those being Zabuza, who took the executioner blade, Kisame, who took Samehada, Mangetsu Hozuki, who took kind of everything, but probably used the split sword. But considering how many 7 swords we never saw used again after this generation that died to Might Dai, like the blast sword or the helmet splitter, it's a possibility that Mangetsu kind of just stepped in for all of them and used whatever sword he found necessary. We also know that the Kiba blades were adopted by Amayori. Now, the 7 swordsmen of the mist were hailed to be the strongest shinobi in the hidden mist village under the Mizukage, and their strength was said to be enough to go up against entire countries and win, which means that Might Dai with the 8 gates could also probably pull that off. But after considering what we saw from Might Dai when he was using the 8 gates, the fact that even one of them survived this encounter speaks to their strength. So obviously, the one wielder who survived was the wielder of Samehada, which is by far and away the most powerful out of the 7 blades, as Samehada is a sentient shark blade that leeches chakra from anybody that it cuts. And when we consider how 8th gate or any of the gates work, Samehada would kind of be the perfect weapon against it, as the 8 gates work very similarly to a Jin cloak. You expel a massive amount of chakra outside of your body. That's why Might Dai is known as the blue bull of the leaf. Now imagine what would have happened if Kisame had Samehada the 3rd time him and Might Dai had fought. Might Dai probably would have had to open to the 8th gate then and there. After the 7 swordsmen of the mist, we kind of have the 7 swordsmen of the mist, but for the leaf. Because coming up at number 4, we have the 12 Guardian Ninja. Now, the reason that I say that the 12 Guardian Ninja are the 7 swordsmen of the mist of the leaf is because the 12 Guardian Ninja are handpicked by the Fire Daimyo to protect him. And therefore, the Fire Daimyo picks the 12 strongest ninja from all across the Land of Fire, not just the village hidden in the leaf, to create this elite team. Members of this elite group are shown by the fact that they wear a waistcloth that has the kanji of fire on it. While there is only technically 2 manga canon members of this group, the anime gave us 7. As in the anime, we were served to an arc that happened 2 years after Naruto's birth, where 6 members of the 12 Guardians rebelled against the Land of Fire, and more specifically, against the Hidden Leaf, as they believed that the Land of Fire's resources were wasted on the Hidden Leaf in its pacifistic ways, mostly rallying around the fact that Hiruzen stepped down to end the 3rd Great Shinobi World War, and therefore these disloyal 6 Guardians tried to destroy Konoha and the Hokage. However, believing it was their responsibility, the 6 loyal Guardians battled against the 6 disloyal Guardians, and only 2 survive, Asuma and Chiriku. And even though the 12 Guardians were disbanded after this because, well, they were down to 2, the surviving members of the 12 Guardians still had a hefty bounty on their head in the underworld, which is why Kakuzu wanted to hunt down Chiriku and Asuma, as Chiriku had a bounty on his head of 30 million and Asuma 35 million. But I know what you're saying. You're saying,
Nick, there's only 2 surviving people in this group, and neither of them were crazy strong.
but of course, just like with the 7 swordsmen of the mist, I'm talking about them at their strongest when all 12 are alive and cooperating with each other. And you'll know if you watch the filler arc about the 12 Guardians that the disloyal Guardians were trying to use a technique known as limelight to destroy Konoha, which I have multiple times throughout the history of this page told you is one of the strongest jutsus in all of Naruto. See, limelight is what happens when you have 4 people stand in all 4 cardinal directions and release their lightning release simultaneously into a central point. The 6 disloyal Guardians believed with the use of limelight, they would be able to destroy the entirety of Konoha, and that would only require 4 of them. Now times that might by 3 for 12 Guardians, and you have an incredibly formidable group. Tie that into the fact that the Land of Fire is the most populated and biggest country in all of Naruto, and the Daimyo handpicking 12 of the strongest people from this country should be a bit stronger than 7 people from a smaller country. On top of this, Chiriku was no joke. I mean, obviously Chiriku lost in a battle against Hidan and Kakuzu, but Chiriku could use welcoming approach 1,000 armed murder, which is essentially Hashirama's true 1,000 arms cane Sharingan, but a lot smaller and technically made out of chakra, not wood. It's one of the coolest abilities in Naruto, and Asuma could also use his technique, though not as well. But Asuma was a Sarutobi and one of the best taijutsu masters out there. Therefore, he was incredibly talented in fire release and also used his chakra blades at a very high level of efficiency. There is absolutely no way he would have lost the Hidan if he had known what Hidan's powers were. After the 12 Guardians, coming in at number 3, we have arguably the most iconic group maybe in anime history. Yes, that's right. We have the legendary Stupid Brothers. Just kidding. Obviously, we have the Akatsuki.
What, Nick? The Akatsuki are the strongest group in Naruto?
No, of course not. They're all dead. Now, the Akatsuki, like all of the important groups on this list, have also been through a huge amount of change. Obviously, they originated as the Ame Orphans' way to try and reseed power for the Hidden Rain and also bring peace to the world. They started as a group of 20 or so ninjas that would take freelance work in order to pay for their grander goal. Their grander goal of bolstering their group's power to the level of that of a country so they could use their group's power to push for peace. And thus, the only named original members of the Akatsuki we know are the Ame Orphans, Yahiko, Nagato, and Konan. We know that Obito tried to reach out to the Ame Orphans to allow them to work together. However, Yahiko believed that Obito was trying to use them and therefore rejected his offer. However, after Hanzo, the Salamander, and Danzo decided to kidnap Konan and have Nagato kill Yahiko, Nagato, kind of lost it. And for the first time in his entire life, he summoned the Ghetto Mazo, which he used to kill everybody present. He then reached back out to Obito and began to make his own version of the Akatsuki. That is, after, of course, killing Hanzo the Salamander. And this group that Nagato created is the truly iconic Akatsuki that we know and love. But even the Akatsuki that Nagato created saw a fair amount of change, as people like Juzo, who was Itachi's original teammate, were killed by the 4th Mizukage, maybe if you believe the filler, and Kakuzu had 2 separate partners that he killed before he got to Hidan, who he couldn't kill. On top of this, we know that Orochimaru, after he was driven out of Konoha, joined the Akatsuki. However, after failing to take over Itachi's body, he left the organization, which leaves us with 9 members that everybody conventionally agrees to be the Akatsuki. And those 9 members would be the zombie duo, Hidan and Kakuzu, the remnants of the Ame Orphans, Konan and the leader Nagato, Itachi and his partner Kisame, the artist duo, Sasori and Deidara, and then Tobi and his kind of partner, White and Black Zetsu. Now, only 3 members of Nagato's Akatsuki make it to Obito's Akatsuki, which is Obito and White and Black Zetsu. Deidara is killed by using his C0 in an attempt to kill Sasuke. Hidan is buried by Shikamaru. Itachi dies in his battle against Sasuke after succumbing to his disease. Kakuzu is killed by Kakashi, but was like definitely killed by Naruto. Kisame is captured by the leaf, but instead of forking over his secrets, decides to devour himself with the shark summons. I guess Konan technically survives, but she leaves the organization and then very stupidly tries to hold on to Nagato's Rinnegan instead of just jamming them into Naruto's face. And so after a long and incredibly arduous fight against Obito that she should have won, Obito kills her after using and introducing Izanagi, which is one of the worst things that Kishimoto ever introduced. Nagato got talked no jutsu'd into killing himself, and Sasori gets killed by his grandmother. But fortunately for Obito, the gang would all get back together eventually. That is to say, in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, where they're all brought back using Edo Tensei. Though this doesn't go super well because one of the people they bring back is Itachi, who's able to use Koto Matsukame on himself to break himself out of Kabuto's control and then put Kabuto in Izanami, releasing the entirety of the Akatsuki back to the Pure Lands, where they get to go, even though they were evil. Now, obviously, the Akatsuki were incredibly powerful. Deidara hailed from the explosion corpse of Iwa and had his explosion release Kekkei Genkai that he would use to explode his created clay constructs. Hidan was immortal and also blessed by Lord Jashin, so any damage he did to himself would be inflicted upon whoever's blood he had consumed. Itachi was a dual MS wielder with one of the strongest Susanos in history. Kakuzu had the Earth Grudge Fear hidden jutsu that allowed him to stretch his body and reattach severed limbs. It also granted him a form of immortality, as he could rip out other people's organs and use them to replace his old ones or his broken ones. Kisame was referred to as the tailless tailed beast, said to have the largest chakra pool out of anybody who wasn't a Jinchuriki. He was also the wielder of Samehada, and without Samehada, forced Might Guy to open the 7th gate. Konan, on top of the fact that she could turn her body into paper to avoid physical harm, was a tactical genius, being the true leader of the Hidden Rain for almost a decade. Nagato was a wielder of 2 Rinnegan, the controller of the 6 Paths of Pain, all of which had one of the abilities of the Rinnegan. On top of this, Nagato himself could control the Ghetto Mazo, on top of being an Uzumaki and having one of the largest chakra pools ever. Sasori was the greatest puppet user of all time, and he went so far as to puppetize his own body, making him immune to things like poison and fire and most things that would kill a regular human. It's largely implied that the only reason that he died in his battle against Sakura and Chio is because he wanted to. And obviously, the Akatsuki, who all died in the relative prime of their lives, came back stronger as Edo Tensei forms. Now, there's technically other iterations of the Akatsuki, like Shin Uchiha's Akatsuki, but that was just Shin and his clones, so we're not gonna count it. But since we're talking about iterations of the Akatsuki, that brings us to our number 2 spot on this list. Kara. See, Kara is the Akatsuki of Boruto, and while Kara is definitely less prestigious and less well-known than the Akatsuki, one to do with the fact that Boruto is less popular than Naruto, and two to do with the fact that Kara wasn't all that impressive, Kara is absolutely stronger than the Akatsuki. See, Kara has a much less storied history than the Akatsuki and is also smaller. However, what Kara has that the Akatsuki never did is 2 separate groups, as Kara has both inners and outers. While inners are what you would consider your standard members of the Akatsuki or standard members of Kara, outers are more like supporters. People who do the bidding of certain individuals from Kara. People like Garo, who had a legendary battle against Kawaki, or Ao, who used a fire ninjutsu chain gun to almost kill Boruto. Now, while the members of the inners of Kara may be less than that of the Akatsuki, the members that are in Kara do some serious heavy hitting. See, even if we only consider the manga canon characters of Kara, that still leaves us with Delta, Kashin Koji, Boro, Jigen, Victor, and Code. 6 people who at their weakest are probably stronger than any singular member of the Akatsuki. Not to mention one of the background characters and probably the most intelligent person in the entirety of Naruto's universe, Amado, is also a part of the inners. Now, Kara didn't work as an organization because half of Kara was plotting to destroy Kara. That is to say that Amado and his creation, Kashin Koji, were. Now, Amado, like I've already stated, is one of the most intelligent people in the entirety of the Naruto universe, as Amado has pulled off scientific feats like cloning Jiraiya and making him a perfect Toad Sage in Kashin Koji, implanting Shinjutsu from Shibai Otsutsuki's body into Daemon and Ada to make them 2 of the most powerful people in the universe, Cyborg so powerful that Ishiki demanded that they be shut down because he knew they were stronger than him, as well as augmenting the entirety of Kawaki's body with Shinobiware to make him a living weapon. Not to mention, he's also created an army of deltas who have the ability to transfer their consciousness from one to each other. And these deltas, who are a member of the inners of Kara, could hypothetically be highballed to Kaguya level, as Naruto in his adult KCM2 form did struggle with taking out Delta in a way that wouldn't kill her. Now, one could argue that if Naruto's family wasn't around, that he could have taken out Delta much easier, and honestly, I would agree with you there. But what we do know about Delta is that she has the ability to absorb all ninjutsu, like a wielder of the Karma Mark or Palm Rinnegan. On top of this, she can fly, is insanely powerful, and is able to shoot a laser that's the speed of light, and also stops any regeneration, meaning that if the likes of Tsunade, Sakura, or Naruto were hit by it, if they got cut in half, they wouldn't be able to regenerate. And mind you, this laser, once again, travels at light speed. Delta alone would probably be more than enough for even the strongest members of the Akatsuki. And then you have members like Code, who's now technically one of the main antagonists of Boruto. Code received a white karma marking from Ishiki, which gave him all of Ishiki's powers, but not Ishiki's consciousness. And Ishiki and/or Jigen knew that Code was so powerful that he forced Amado to place limiters on him so Code wouldn't surpass his power. Limiters, which mind you, have now been removed, meaning Code is now more powerful than even Jigen was, putting him somewhere on the level of Ishiki. Tie that into the fact that Code has now separated the 10 tails into a bunch of clones, all of which bear his claw marks, which he's able to teleport through, as Code's true ability allows him to create claw marks that he can freely travel between, like flying Raijin, and you have one of the most powerful, yet not so intimidating people in all of Naruto's history. Outside of Code, there's other members like Victor, who, although he was cut down by Kashin Koji rather easily, had his entire body upgraded with scientific ninja tools. Victor, with the help of these tools, was able to go up against the likes of the strongest version of Orochimaru we've ever seen. Now, a lot of this came from Victor's regeneration abilities, as he was able to regenerate things like lost limbs or a lost head instantaneously. But outside of regenerating lost limbs, Victor could also manifest additional arms, and he could use these additional arms to weave hand signs while he fought with his other ones, as Victor was able to use all 5 elemental releases on top of Yin release. And while Victor probably couldn't go up against the likes of Nagato or Obito or maybe even Itachi, he was still a force to be reckoned with. The same could be said for Boro, the leader of a cult and the wielder of lava release. Boro's strength was monstrous. He was said to be stronger than Delta. In fact, he was so strong that Kara believed that he would be able to fight off Sasuke if Sasuke came to retrieve Naruto from the sealed coffin. And Boro, just like Victor, also had insane regeneration abilities, as he had a jutsu that would immediately heal his body from any physical damage or any ailment. On top of all this, Boro had in his body a scientific ninja tool that allowed him to release a dark mist. Now, this dark mist held a fast-acting virus that only Boro had the ability to heal. But if that wasn't enough, Boro technically only had one vital organ, and that was a core that he was able to move. And so long as you didn't destroy this core, which he was able to migrate to different parts of his body, Boro could not be killed. And even if that core is destroyed, his body would enter a rampage mode, where he would destroy everything around him. And the only thing strong enough to defeat this mode was a Boroshiki-powered Rasengan. And lastly, the leader of Kara, Jigen, also known as Ishiki Otsutsuki. What do I need to say about Jigen except for the fact that he battled against adult Naruto and adult Sasuke simultaneously and embarrassed both of them? This man flew through Sasuke Susanoo and just snagged him. And he didn't just beat them once, he beat them twice, eventually beating them so bad that he just threw Naruto in a coffin. And this was technically his weaker form, as after Jigen was killed by Kashin Koji, he manifested Ishiki through Jigen's body using it as a vessel, which technically only gave Ishiki a couple of days to live. And even after Naruto activated Baryon mode and put the beatdown of a lifetime on Ishiki, they still technically couldn't defeat him. See, the only reason that Naruto and the rest of Konoha was able to defeat Ishiki in the first place is because he ran out of time. Naruto, using Baryon mode, was able to shave down how much time he had as Ishiki. However, if hypothetically Ishiki had infinite time in his body, there's nothing Konoha could have done. There's nothing anybody could have done. He's the strongest person we've seen thus far in the universe. But technically, him at his strongest was still foiled by the #1 group on our list, the Konoha 13. See, while the Konoha 13 may not actually exist as a formal group, as they're usually referred to as the Konoha 11, I like to add Sai and Sasuke into the list here. And so for me, it's the Konoha 13. With the Konoha 13 being Team 7, which is Sasuke, Sai, Naruto, and Sakura. Team 10, also known as Ina Shikacho, which is Choji, Ino, and Shikamaru. Team 5, which is Hinata, Shino, and Kiba. And Team Guy, who for some reason didn't get a number, which is Rock Lee, Neji, and Tenten. And while obviously all of the Konoha 13 turned into lovely ninjas, if we're being real, they're all being carried by Team 7. Not even all of Team 7. The 3 people carrying the other 10 in the Konoha 13 are very obviously Sakura, Naruto, and Sasuke. With Sasuke reaching a level of power as an adult where he believed he would be able to battle against Kaguya and win in a one-on-one, and going toe-to-toe with the likes of Momoshiki and Kinshiki simultaneously to a relative stalemate. Now, when it came down to more important battles, like the battle against Ishiki, Sasuke really stood no chance, but he did take a couple of the punches meant for Naruto and Boruto, which allowed them to be useful. Sakura is the world's greatest healer, and also probably the strongest human on Earth. Her chakra control is the most precise out of anybody in the universe, probably even greater than that of Tsunade's. And because of this, she's able to use the 100 heal seal, or the Byakuya seal, which allows her to be killed over 100 times in combat and regenerate back from all of them. On top of this, she is able to summon Lady Katsuyo, the greatest healing force on Earth. And this precise chakra control that she has makes her almost entirely resistant to Genjutsu. However, in Boruto, she has pretty much, just like all of the other women in Konoha 13, been regulated to being a housewife. But at least she's not currently trapped in a timeless and spaceless subdimension called the Daikokuten, because that's what Naruto is doing. But then again, Naruto, after using Baryon mode in his battle against Ishiki, has been relatively useless. But at his strongest, Naruto was able to completely outmatch somebody who was able to fly through a Susanoo. Naruto was faster, stronger, had better perception, better fighting skills, better everything than Ishiki while using Baryon mode. He had easily planetary level defenses, considering the fact that he had small planet defenses in KCM2 in Baryon mode. Easily city level attack power, considering the fact that he had city level attack power in his Kurama mode, and was massively faster than light. Naruto in Baryon mode is technically the strongest person in the universe, outside of probably Shibai Otsutsuki. Now, outside of these 3, obviously other ninjas have accomplished things. Sai is the head of the Anbu, Ino is the head of the Cypher Corps. Hinata technically inherited Hamura's last bit of chakra and was able to destroy a Tenseigan with the help of Naruto. But when it comes down to it, the real reason the Konoha 13 are the strongest group in the history of Naruto is those 3. But what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with my list? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. When making a list that includes Naruto, Naruto is always the top of the list. I don't make the laws, I just abide by them.